Most people think the most dangerous person in a fight is the one who looks the strongest, the man with the biggest muscles, the loudest voice, the most aggressive energy. But the truth is the opposite. The most dangerous person in any confrontation is the one who becomes completely silent. Not silent because he is weak, silent because his mind is perfectly under control. Centuries ago in Japan, one warrior mastered this state better than anyone in history. His name was Miyamoto Musashi. Musashi fought more than 60 duels during his lifetime. These weren't tournaments or sport competitions. They were real battles where defeat meant death. And yet, across all those fights, he never lost. But here is the part most people misunderstand. Musashi did not win because he was faster than everyone else. He did not win because he was stronger. And he did not win because he had better weapons. His greatest advantage was something far more devastating: mental control. While his opponents arrived at duels filled with anxiety, pride, anger, and fear, Musashi remained calm, completely calm. His mind was so steady that many opponents lost control before the fight even began. And here's the fascinating part. The same mental strategies that helped Musashi survive deadly duels can help you navigate modern conflicts today. Because whether you're dealing with an aggressive coworker, a heated argument at home, or someone attacking you online, the principle remains the same. Whoever controls the mind controls the outcome. Musashi understood this better than anyone, and the foundation of his mental mastery began with one powerful skill. The first secret: emotional distance. Let me ask you something. When someone suddenly yells at you, what happens inside your body? Your muscles tighten, your heartbeat speeds up, your mind starts racing. Anger begins rising almost instantly. Before you realize it, you are fully inside the emotional storm. Your words become sharper, your reactions become impulsive. And suddenly, you are no longer in control. This is exactly the trap Musashi understood centuries ago. He realized something that most people never learn. When emotion takes control, intelligence disappears. And when intelligence disappears, control goes with it. That is why his first principle had nothing to do with swords or fighting techniques. It was something deeper: emotional distance. Emotional distance does not mean suppressing your feelings. It means creating space between you and the emotion. Instead of becoming anger, you observe anger. Musashi once described it like watching clouds pass across the sky. The clouds appear, they move, and eventually they disappear, but the sky remains unchanged. Musashi treated emotions the same way. Fear would appear, anger would appear. But he never became those emotions. He simply noticed them. And because he did not identify with them, they could not control him. Most people do the opposite. When someone insults them, they say, "I am angry," or even worse, "I am the anger." At that moment, the emotion takes over completely. It begins controlling your words, your tone, your decisions. You become a puppet pulled by invisible strings. Musashi refused to let that happen. Instead, he used a subtle but powerful mental shift. He would say to himself, "I am feeling anger," not "I am anger." That tiny change creates distance. And inside that distance lies your power. Because when you can observe an emotion instead of becoming it, you regain the ability to choose your response. Creating the gap. This principle might sound simple, but it is incredibly powerful. Psychologists today call this cognitive distancing. It's the ability to step back mentally and observe your emotional reactions. When you label your emotion, your brain activates the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for reasoning and decision-making. In other words, naming the emotion weakens its control. Musashi discovered this through experience long before modern neuroscience explained it. When anger appeared during battle, he did not react blindly. He noticed it, acknowledged it, and allowed it to pass. Because emotions are temporary, but decisions made under emotional control can last forever. A simple practice. You can start using Musashi's first principle immediately. The next time you feel strong emotion rising during a confrontation, pause. Take one moment and say quietly in your mind, "I notice that I'm feeling angry," or "I notice that I'm feeling frustrated." That single sentence creates a gap between you and the emotion. And inside that gap, something incredible happens. Your reaction slows down, your breathing stabilizes, your thoughts become clearer. Instead of reacting impulsively, you begin responding intelligently. The emotional storm begins to lose its power. And that is the moment real control begins. Musashi knew that controlling emotions was only the first step. Remaining calm in a confrontation required something even deeper. Because emotional storms rarely appear without warning. Human behavior follows patterns. Anger has patterns. Fear has patterns. Pride has patterns. And Musashi mastered the ability to see those patterns before they appeared. It was the second mental secret that made his opponents collapse before the first strike even happened. A skill he called anticipatory awareness. And that is where his true strategic genius begins. Once Musashi learned to create emotional distance, something remarkable happened. He gained time, not literal time, but mental time. While others reacted instantly to anger, fear, or pressure, Musashi could pause for a fraction of a second and observe what was happening. That pause changed everything. Because when you are not overwhelmed by emotion, you begin to see things other people miss. Patterns, signals, intentions, and this leads to the second mental secret that made Musashi nearly impossible to defeat. Anticipatory awareness. The second secret. Anticipatory awareness. Most people walk into confrontations blind. They react in the moment. Someone says something aggressive, someone challenges them, someone criticizes them, and they respond impulsively without preparation. Musashi did the opposite. Before every duel, he studied his opponent carefully. How they moved, how they spoke, how they reacted under pressure. He observed small details most people ignored. Was the opponent impatient? Did he attack quickly when frustrated? Did he rely on a specific technique? Did he become reckless when angry? Musashi understood something important about human nature. People believe they are unpredictable, but under pressure, humans follow patterns. Anger repeats the same reactions. Fear limits choices. Impatience reveals weakness. Musashi studied these patterns until he could predict what someone would do before they did it. And one of the most famous examples happened in his duel with Sasaki Kojiro. The duel with Sasaki Kojiro was considered one of the most skilled swordsmen in Japan. He was famous for using an unusually long sword. He was also proud, impatient, and easily irritated. Musashi studied all of this before their duel. So when the day arrived, Musashi did something shocking. He arrived late, very late. Kojiro waited on the beach for hours, growing more irritated by the minute. By the time Musashi finally arrived by boat, Kojiro was furious. His mind was already unstable. But Musashi had prepared one more move. During the boat ride, he carved a wooden sword from an oar, and he made it slightly longer than Kojiro's weapon. The fight lasted less than a minute. Kojiro attacked aggressively, exactly as Musashi predicted, and Musashi defeated him with a single decisive strike. The duel was not won through speed or strength. It was won through anticipation. Musashi had already studied the emotional landscape of his opponent before stepping into battle. The fight was almost decided before it began how this applies to modern life. You may never face someone with a sword, but every day you face confrontations, a tense meeting, a disagreement with a partner, a difficult conversation with a boss, or someone provoking you online. And in these moments, people usually react emotionally. But if you use Musashi's principle, you can prepare yourself before the conversation even begins. Before entering a difficult interaction, pause for 30 seconds and ask yourself 3 questions. What emotional state is this person likely in? Are they frustrated, defensive, nervous? What do they actually want from this conversation? Approval, control, recognition, understanding? What are the 3 most likely reactions they might have? Anger, withdrawal, blame? When you think through these possibilities, your brain prepares itself. Instead of reacting blindly, you enter the conversation with awareness. This dramatically reduces the power of emotional surprise. And surprise is one of the biggest triggers for panic. The psychology behind anticipation. Modern research supports what Musashi practiced centuries ago. Negotiators, crisis mediators, and psychologists all use similar strategies today. Before entering high-stakes negotiations, professionals often map out emotional responses and behavioral patterns. They ask the same questions Musashi asked. What will this person likely do under pressure? How will they react if challenged? Where are their emotional triggers? A behavioral psychologist who spent 2 decades studying crisis negotiations explains it simply. Surprise is what creates panic. Preparation removes panic. When you anticipate emotional patterns, your brain stays calm. Instead of reacting impulsively, you remain focused and clear. And clarity in chaotic situations is an enormous advantage. Musashi knew that calm awareness was one of the most powerful weapons a warrior could possess. The power of calm observation. There's another reason anticipatory awareness works so well. When you understand the emotional terrain of a situation, you stop taking things personally. You see behavior as patterns rather than attacks. Instead of thinking, "They're attacking me," you begin to see they are reacting from fear, frustration, or ego. That shift changes your response. You stop reacting emotionally. You start responding strategically. And in most conflicts, the person who remains calm becomes the one who guides the outcome. But Musashi knew something else. Even anticipation alone was not enough, because in intense confrontations, the body still reacts. The heart still accelerates, adrenaline still rises. And when the body becomes unstable, the mind follows. So Musashi developed a third mental tool, a simple technique that allowed him to reset his entire nervous system in seconds. A technique that modern neuroscience now confirms is one of the fastest ways to regain control. It all comes down to one powerful mechanism: breathing. And that is the next secret that gave Musashi his deadly calm even in life or death battles. By the time Musashi stepped into most duels, 2 things had already happened. First, he had created emotional distance. Second, he had studied his opponent and anticipated their behavior. But there was still one problem. Even the most disciplined mind lives inside a human body. And when danger appears, the body reacts automatically. Your heart starts racing, your muscles tighten, your breathing becomes short and rapid. This is the body's natural fight or flight response. It evolved to help humans survive sudden threats. But in modern confrontations, arguments, negotiations, stressful conversations, that same reaction often becomes a disadvantage. When breathing becomes chaotic, the mind becomes chaotic too. Musashi noticed this pattern very early in his life. He saw it in his opponents during duels. As fear or anger grew, their breathing changed first. It became fast, uneven, shallow, and the moment their breathing lost rhythm, their thinking collapsed. That observation led Musashi to develop the third mental secret of control, the third secret: strategic breathing. Musashi understood something profound. Breathing is the bridge between the body and the mind. If the breath is chaotic, the mind becomes chaotic. But if the breath is steady, the mind naturally follows. So Musashi trained himself to control his breathing even during intense combat. Before decisive moments, he would slow everything down. One deep breath, in through the nose, out through the mouth, not rushed, not forced, just deliberate and calm. That single breath acted like a reset button for his entire nervous system. It stabilized his body, it cleared his mind, and while his opponent remained trapped in adrenaline and panic, Musashi stayed focused and precise. Centuries later, neuroscience confirms exactly what he discovered through experience. Slow, controlled breathing activates something called the parasympathetic nervous system, the system responsible for calming the body and restoring balance. When you slow your breath, your brain receives a powerful signal. You are safe. Stress hormones begin to decrease. Your heart rate slows, and your thinking becomes clear again. In other words, controlled breathing can shift you from emotional chaos to calm focus within seconds. Musashi's breathing technique. Musashi used a very simple breathing rhythm. You can practice it anywhere, before a difficult conversation, before a stressful meeting, or even during an argument. The technique works like this. First, inhale slowly through your nose for 4 seconds, then hold the breath briefly. Finally, exhale slowly through your mouth for 6 seconds. That longer exhale is important. It tells your nervous system to relax. Even one cycle can reduce tension. 2 or 3 cycles can completely change your emotional state. It's like stepping out of the storm for a moment, and once the mind becomes clear again, you regain something extremely valuable: choice. Instead of reacting automatically, you can decide how to respond. And that brings us to the fourth and final principle Musashi used to maintain control in any confrontation. The fourth secret: purposeful action. Most arguments spiral out of control for one simple reason. People forget why they started the conversation in the first place. Someone raises a concern, then another person responds defensively. Soon old frustrations appear. Past arguments get dragged into the present. Voices rise, emotions explode, and suddenly no one remembers the original reason for the discussion. Musashi understood this chaos very well. His opponents often entered duels driven by anger, pride, or the desire to prove themselves. But Musashi never fought for those reasons. He always entered a confrontation with a clear objective. Every movement had a purpose. Every decision served that purpose. In his writings, Musashi explained something very important. The warrior must not fight blindly. He must remain focused on his true objective. Purpose protects the mind. Without purpose, emotions take over. With purpose, emotions become secondary. Applying purpose in modern conflict. Before entering any difficult interaction, ask yourself one simple question. What is my real goal here? Not what your ego wants, not what your anger demands, but your true goal. Maybe it is, I want to resolve this misunderstanding, or I want to express my point calmly, or I want to protect my peace. Once that goal becomes clear, it becomes an anchor for your mind. During the conversation, when emotions begin rising, you can return to that anchor. Instead of reacting impulsively, you ask yourself, does this response move me closer to my goal? If the answer is no, you let it go. If the answer is yes, you proceed calmly. This is how purpose transforms conflict. It prevents you from being pulled into emotional chaos. and it allows your actions to remain intentional. The real victory over time, Musashi realized something deeper than winning duels. True mastery was not about defeating others, it was about mastering yourself. Because when you control your mind, something interesting happens. Many conflicts simply disappear. Arguments lose their intensity, provocations lose their power, and situations that once drained your energy no longer control you. You become the calm center in the middle of chaos, and that calm is a form of power far greater than aggression. The 4 mental principles of Musashi. Everything Musashi practiced can be summarized in 4 mental principles: emotional distance, observe emotions without becoming them; anticipatory awareness, understand human patterns and prepare before conflict begins; strategic breathing, use controlled breathing to stabilize the body and mind; purposeful action, act according to your objective, not your ego. These principles were once tools of survival in deadly duels. Today they are tools for navigating modern life. Because in a world full of noise, anger, and constant provocation, the most powerful person is still the one who remains calm. Not the loudest, not the most aggressive, but the one who chooses awareness over reaction. Just like Musashi did centuries ago. And when you begin practicing these principles, you discover something surprising. You are no longer simply reacting to the battles around you. You are rising above them. That is the true way of the warrior, not the path of brute force, but the path of inner mastery.